Earlier this year, we put out a video detailing City Council's plans to revitalize the Estevan downtown district. In that video, we questioned Estevan City Council and their intentions, their ability to keep the project under budget and on time, and the impact it would have on the future of this city. It's no secret that concerned citizens wanted the people of Estevan to be able to vote on this project during the next election, which is taking place this fall. And truthfully, we just wanted the people of this city to have their voices heard. Concerned citizens started a petition, they started a movement here in the city and started getting people to ask questions towards the city council. Now that petition in 2 weeks was signed by 1,491 people, or around 25% of the voting population of Estevan, far exceeding the required 10% of signatures needed. If you haven't heard, the city clerk deemed the petition insufficient due to a few different issues. They threw out 273 signatures due to having the wrong date format. Some people signed it day, month, year, and some signed it month, day, year. 63 signatures were thrown out because they couldn't read the signatures, and 140 were removed due to incomplete addresses. We needed 1,085 valid signatures. We got 1,491, and 485 were removed, bringing the total down to 1,006, just under what was needed to deem it valid. The petition being struck down prompted concerned citizens to challenge the city in court, in which the judge ruled that the day and months being inversely written by mistake should have actually been included when debating the validity of the petition. But due to how far along phase 1 of the project is, it's kind of considered a moot point. So even though the city clerk wrongly removed over 250 signatures to throw the petition out, most likely on advisal of their legal team to do so, we've set a precedent within this city so future city clerks can never do this again. What they're telling you, straight to your face, is that your vote and your voice does not matter. They willfully ignored 25% of the voting population's concerns, and now a month before the next city council election, we have a downtown revitalization project that is over budget and undercooked. On the city council meeting on March 25th of this year, our city manager Jeff Ward said this.
Just to reiterate that once this is chosen, we can now work with the contractor to make sure that we can either reduce scope or change parts of the design to make sure that we are within the budgeted amount. So just to clarify that because it was an RFQ for 70% design from Associated Engineering, that the full project can be negotiated to make sure we're in budget.
On the April 8th council meeting, when concerned citizens actually got in there to ask questions about the budget, Roy Ludwig, our mayor, said this.
So to clarify, that 10 million is the starting number. We'll be negotiating that down probably to 7 million. And we haven't even done that yet, but that when we sit down, that's what we're looking at.
That same night, Jeff Ward said this.
Council made the motion to borrow 1.5 million from this year. There is no 1.5 million taken from the surplus. That was one of the options. Either take it from the surplus,
wasn't that the first
of 2.3, or borrow. Council made the decision this year to borrow so that we weren't ever cash strapped on it. So it would only be the 7.75 million plus the 1.5 of our contribution.
A few minutes later, council member Lindsay Clark chimed in and said this.
Are you against the project just because you're against the project because that's what it is, or are you against overspending and the long term? If those are the two issues, I think we've answered those tonight, and I think I can say that we will stay on budget and we won't go with the other one unless there's a vote.
In just 5 short months, city manager Jeff Ward has revealed that costs for the Downtown Revitalization Project have exceeded the budget, prompting adjustments to be made for the scope of the project. These adjustments include removing or deferring things like banner lighting, east and west electrical kiosks, plants, benches, trash cans, tables, as well as turning the lights that were on the 12th Avenue intersection to a 4-way stop, which for now they say they could use the traffic committee to monitor and assess its effectiveness of the 4-way stops, adding that it may be necessary to reintroduce traffic lights if required, and if so, they say that they could apply for grants from SGI down the road. Every year we apply for grants, so that would be a good use of that, said Councillor Shelley Varoba. There's a lot of numbers being thrown around here. This memo from Associated Engineering basically breaks it down and says that the city reduced the cost of this project by $1.3 million, bringing the entire construction cost down to $10.7 million, which sounds great until you realize that they're still over budget. The city council has approved an increase in borrowing another $500,000 for the current year, and the remaining excess costs were covered using the city's cash reserves, ensuring that the project could continue without further delays. But also note that $10.7 million construction cost doesn't include the $750,000 spent for engineering and administrative expenses. And our city council has indicated that these additional costs will be addressed by reallocating funds from the Canadian Community Builds Fund in 2025. And according to Associated Engineering, this strategic financial planning will allow the project to remain within an overall manageable budget. So it's a fancy way of saying we reduced the scope of the project by $1.3 million and we were still over budget, but it's manageable and that's okay. We don't even have the money nor the resources to put the traffic lights back in that were removed earlier this year. Where did they go? That's just one question of many that concerned citizens have towards the city council. Now, 5 months ago, Councilmember Tony Cernick was discussing the idea of deferring and scaling back to remain on budget, in which he asserted that we will stay on budget.
This allows us to have the cash ready for unexpected issues, but the project can also be geared back a little bit if we do want to, well, if we do, we will remain on budget,
So you'd think with the suggestion of borrowing another $2.6 million to put towards this project, Tony Cernick would have some questions and maybe take Jeff Ward to task.
So we're going to borrow 2.6. Does it change the payment an awful lot to just borrow 3 million and give us a little bit of contingency here because we know we're going to find something else?
Oh, well, so much for staying on budget, I guess. And this is where it gets confusing for the people. We have Associated Engineering in a document saying that the city is increasing the borrowing amount by $500,000, and we have City Council discussing the difference between borrowing $2.6 million versus $3 million to put towards this project. We have $1.3 million of scope being reduced or deferred for the project. We don't know which one is which, and we're still over budget at the end of the day. How much money is the Downtown Revitalization Project costing the city of Estevan? It should be a simple answer. And not only is Tony Cernick no longer concerned with over budgeting on this project, he's now attempting to bring another arena to the city of Estevan. Another project that I'm sure will remain on time and on budget.
The need for another arena, there's no doubt that there's a need for another arena. The question is do the citizens of Estevan want another arena? So that's where the plebiscite comes about, you know, on behalf of all the users of the arenas, Affinity Place, Power Dodge Arena. I'd like to propose that we do a plebiscite to gauge the voters' concern about another arena.
Where was the plebiscite to gauge the voters' concerns about the Downtown Revitalization Project? And after this entire debacle with the downtown project, the question I have is if enough people vote no in this plebiscite for this new arena, would it even matter? If everybody were to vote yes, this city council would look at that as gospel and say that it was binding and look, the people want it. But if they voted no, chances are we would see 5 more town halls with the city council trying their best to convince people that we need yet another ice surface. And while all of this conversation is going on about the Downtown Revitalization Project, the over-budgeting, the mismanagement of funds, I was curious to see what other members of council have been focusing on during this time.
To Councillor Walliser with diversity, equity, and inclusion discussion.
My request is that with each internal policy, bylaw, initiative of council, or program of the city, every funding request we receive or grant we provide, that we ask for these questions to be asked and answered. So if we receive a request for funding from a minor sports organization, we would ask them to include these 3 questions and answers in their report.
So moving forward, if there is a request for a grant or funding from the city council, you will need to make sure that the check boxes are ticked to include diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Kirsten Walliser's second recommendation is that every manager take 2 hours to be trained on DEI policy and integration in their communities. DEI policies have been repealed and stripped back in recent times, with over 30 states in the United States introducing bills and passing laws banning DEI policies from infecting various industries, colleges, and more. This isn't where our city council should be focused when so many people are simply trying to survive, go to work, make a living while paying outrageous tax amounts. But of course, the motion was passed with this comment from Rebecca Ford.
To be able to ask those questions during budget time. Budget time happens immediately after the election, and it allows our third-party grant people, it allows our managers, it allows everybody presenting their budget to the city to say, hey, is this including important people in our city? Is this including people that we may have missed, that may, have been overlooked over the years? So I do support this. I think this is really important. I do know that there is a cost to this, but the two paid hours per employee invited to participate is not a big ask when it comes to deciding how we include people in our community. We have a lot of very diverse people in this community from all walks of life, and I think it's really important that we take the steps to include everybody, whether it be this council or next council or 10 councils from now.
The irony of a city council focusing on inclusion when you excluded over 250 signatures because they wrote the date wrong is not lost on anybody else. Truthfully, Concerned Citizens no longer believes that this city council has the voters' best interest at heart. From over-budgeting to mismanagement of projects to focusing on intrusive policy like DEI, we believe that now is the time for change. And as we move closer to election time, there will be people stepping up to challenge this city's position, to challenge their leadership, and to bring real change to this city. Stay tuned for events hosted by Concerned Citizens in the near future that will bring about this change. And we encourage everybody to let your voices be heard and use your right to vote come November.